Today is January 26, 2023, and we are at the Kent County Veterans Service Offices in Grand Rapids, Michigan, recording a oral history interview with a Veterans History interview, or Veterans History Project, as part of the Library of Congress. I'm going to be interviewing Michael Ray Blundell, date of birth January 10, 1951. And my name as the interviewer is Wallace Erichsen. That's E-R-I-C-H-S-E-N. And Michael's last name, Blundell, is spelled B-L-U-N-D-E-L-L. And I, Wallace Erichsen, I'm a volunteer interviewer with the History Department at Grand Valley State University, Allendale, Michigan. And I am also the camera recording operator, as well as being the interviewer. Michael, what is your full name and date of birth?
Michael Ray Blundell. I was born January 10th, 1951.
Okay. What branch of service did you serve in, and what were your years of service?
I served in the Navy from 1969 to 1979.
Okay, thank you. What was your highest rank?
I was a petty officer, first class.
Where were you raised, and where did you go to high school?
Well, I went to a couple of high schools. My dad was in the Army, so we moved around a lot. So I was raised in different states as we moved around. And I finished high school in Detroit, Michigan, or Hamtramck, Michigan, at St. Florian High School.
What year did you graduate?
1969.
Okay. Where were some of the cities you recall where you lived in before or during high school, I guess?
Yeah. I lived in San Antonio, Texas. I lived in Columbus, Georgia. I lived in several cities in Oklahoma and Kansas. Whenever my dad was gone overseas, we lived on the farm with my grandparents.
Where was that? Where was the farm?
Lenapaw, Oklahoma.
Were you drafted, or did you enlist in the
No,
Navy?
I enlisted. I went into the Navy's delayed entry program, and I enlisted while I was still in high school.
How many months or years delay was that?
Just a few months, just before I graduated, and then.
Yeah. Where were you living at that time?
In Detroit, Michigan. Yeah.
And why did you join the Navy?
To see the world. Well, like I said, I was brought up in the Army basically, and I just wanted to do something different. And I thought the Navy had neat uniforms, so.
Was your dad entirely compatible with you joining the Navy versus the Army?
I think he thought it was a good idea. He had spent time in Vietnam, and I think he thought it was a better choice for me.
Oh. And when did you enter? Do you remember the date that you entered?
I don't recall the exact date, but it was in 1969, August maybe.
That's fine, yeah. And do you recall your first days in the service?
I do.
Where did you go through basic training?
I went to San Diego, California, so they sent me from Detroit to San Diego at that time.
So you had boot camp or basic training there in San Diego.
Yeah.
What were those days like?
Pretty good. I mean, I don't have any bad memories of it, and of course, a lot of camaraderie between, you know, the other recruits there. Got some lifelong friends. We still get together occasionally, and you know, have little reunions. So it was a good experience. I was able to type good enough that they put me in an office for a lot of the time that I was at boot camp. So
So you weren't in a foxhole then, right?
no.
So you kept in touch with some of the people you were in basic training with.
Yes.
How did that happen?
Yeah. So after basic training, we were also together through some our initial training, Class A school, they called it. So I was going to be an electronics technician, and so we spent about 4 weeks, I think, in San Diego after boot camp, and then went to Treasure Island, California, for 1 year of electronics training. And we were together from boot camp through that training. And I got married while we were on Treasure Island, and one of the guys that I knew from basic training was the best man at our wedding. So, so we kept in touch. We met up again in Guam when I was in Guam, and we get together every year or two to, you know, have a nice reunion.
Do you recall any of your drill instructors back in basic training? What were they like?
Yeah, there was a couple of them that were kind of tough. You know, they come down hard on you, but you just had to have the right frame of mind. You know, you knew what it was all about. So, you know, it was, for me, it was a pretty good experience. You know.
Well, it's nice that you kept in touch with you know, some of the trainees that you went through with.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the experiences in the military section here, Michael. Did you were in the service during the Vietnam conflict? Did you actually serve in Vietnam or in the Gulf of Tonkin?
No, I did not. I didn't get in country.
Where was your first duty station then?
I was stationed in Beeville, Texas. It was a Naval Air Training Station. They were training pilots, and I was assigned to the ground electronics unit there. We maintained the communications equipment between the towers and the aircraft, and weather equipment, radar equipment, that sort of thing.
Were you with a fairly large unit there then in electronics?
No, it was relatively small. I think maybe 20, 25 people assigned to it.
Well, were you married at this time?
Yes, yeah. I got married when I was in training on Treasure Island.
What is your wife's name?
Barbara Blundell.
I see. Is she from California or?
No, she was from Detroit. We met in high school, and we dated for 3 years. And
While we're at it, how many children do you have, if any?
Three children.
Yeah.
And our oldest son, who passed away years ago, he was born in Beeville, Texas, and my other 2 children were born in Guam.
What are your children's names?
Scott, Terry, and Jeff.
I see. How did you enjoy Texas, your duty station there? How long were you there in Beeville?
Yeah, I was there 2 years. Yeah, it was good. I learned a lot as far as maintaining equipment, you know, being my first active duty station. So,
Did you live on base?
No, we lived off base. In fact, when we first moved there, I had an aunt and uncle that lived in Beeville, Texas, so, coincidentally, and they had a farmhouse out in the country, and we lived there for a few months. But between the spiders and scorpions getting in the house, my wife wasn't going to stay there, so we moved into town.
So when you got into town anyway, you got rid of some of the scorpions and spiders.
Yeah.
And again, you were 2 years, you mentioned, in Beeville.
Mm-hmm.
Where was your next duty station?
From there, I went to the USS Gallup patrol gunboat, PG-85.
Were you at sea, or was that?
Well, we were home ported out of Guam.
I see.
And when I first went over, we did a what they call a Trust Territory Patrol Inspection, TTPI, and we traveled 7,000 miles in a gunboat out in the open ocean, so it was a little rough. We went to the Philippines, to Singapore, to Java, New Guinea, across the equator, went to Toby Island, 3 different ports in Australia.
Did your boat travel on its own, or were you with a naval group? Or?
There was a group of three of our ships that did that, yeah.
Now, as an electronic technician on a patrol gunboat, what were your duties there?
Well, I was what they called a Combat Information Center watch officer. Helped navigate, maintain electronics equipment, radar, communications equipment.
How long were you at sea then on that first cruise?
3 months.
Did you do other cruises of that length or longer?
No, that was the longest time we were deployed. We made several other short-term deployments, and we did, maneuvers at sea and gun practicing and things like that.
And how long were you on Guam then?
I was on Guam for about, like 3.5 years.
I see. And during that 3.5 years, were you assigned to the USS Gallup?
No, I was on the Gallup for about 1.5 years, and then I was transferred to the Naval Communications Station at the north end of Guam.
Well, after your service on the USS Gallup, you remained on Guam, was that right? What
Yeah.
were your duties there, and where were you assigned?
I was assigned to the Naval Communications Station. We maintained, I was at the receiver site, so we maintained receivers there.
And how long were you there then with the
2 years.
Communications Center?
2 years.
2 years. And then where was your next duty station?
From there, I went to Navy Recruiting Command, Detroit, Michigan, and I was stationed in Lansing, Michigan. I had an office in East Lansing, Michigan, and I also had an office in
Okay, so you were with the Recruiting Command in Lansing. Did you have other offices too?
Yes, so I had an office in Charlotte, Michigan. That was actually in the basement of the post office there, and I worked there for a few months, probably 8 months or so, and then I went to East Lansing and opened up an office across from Michigan State University, so had an office there, and I was the one-man office.
So you didn't have other Navy recruiters with you?
Not working with me on a daily basis, no.
Okay. And when did you leave the Navy then?
In 1979.
I see. Any particular reason why you didn't stay for a career or full career?
Well, yes. So my intention was to make it a career and stay. I got orders to the USS Spruance, and my oldest son had medical issues, and I just couldn't stay in and make sure that he was taken care of properly. So, yeah.
Let me move into the experiences that you experienced in the Navy. Were you involved in combat at all then, Michael?
No. About the closest I ever came to any combat was when we arrested poachers. We boarded some other small ships that were poaching on trust territory islands and atolls.
And were you ever wounded?
No.
And were you ever a prisoner of war?
I was not.
Okay. Were you awarded any individual medals or citations?
While on recruiting duty, I earned a gold wreath and a silver star for recruiting excellence. So, other than that, it was just my National Defense Medal and my good conduct ribbons.
I'm assuming you were successful then in recruiting, getting others to enlist.
I did a pretty good job, yeah.
Did you enjoy recruiting?
It was hard duty, very hard duty. It was long hours, getting up dark 30 and driving people to Detroit and getting back late at night. So it was rough duty. Yeah.
Did you attend events at high schools or other locations?
Yeah. We made presentations at different places. It was hard to get into the high schools during that time. This is on the heels of Vietnam, and we weren't really welcomed in the schools very much. But we did events at different venues. So.
Let me ask you, during that time that you were recruiting, was the draft still in effect, or had that been set aside?
It was, as I recall, it was, or it had just ended. I can't say for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The next section here, Michael, is life in the military. So you had your family with you, or at least your wife and children with you in Guam and in Lansing.
Yeah.
Well, for instance, when you were in Guam, overseas, how did you keep in touch with your parents and siblings?
By phone. Mm-hmm. And we also were able, from the ship, we were able to do satellite phone calls. So,
mm-hmm.
That helped.
What was the food like on the ship?
It was excellent food. Yeah, we had a cook and there was a couple of us that I would help cook breakfast in the morning. So we had good meals. A lot of times we had fresh fish. We could fish off the ship, and we'd catch dolphin. And
how many personnel were on board the ship?
20.
So it really wasn't that large of a ship then?
No, it was pretty small. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. How long was it?
165 feet long. It was 23 feet wide. Had 2 diesel engines, and it had a gas turbine engine. So it was a jet engine like they had in the F-4 Phantom jets.
Was the gas turbine for propulsion also?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. And getting supplies, did you resupply at sea, for instance?
We would refuel at sea. We usually weren't underway for any length of time that we couldn't make some port and replenish.
So you're able to get to ports of call and at least to replenish food and vegetables and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Well, overall, then, throughout your Navy career, I wanted to ask you about how you handled stress and pressure. I can imagine as a recruiter, there's probably a lot of pressure there.
There was, you were expected to meet goals, and like I said before, it's a lot of hours involved, a lot of cold contacts where you were calling people on the phone, doing things like that. It was a little stressful. On the ship, everybody pulled together. You had like I said, I'd cook breakfast in the mornings, help navigate, work on the equipment, stand watches. We had a radar failure that I worked on it for like 36 hours straight, and finally found out that seawater had gotten down into the waveguides. So, that you were expected to keep up.
But salt water kind of shorts things out, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine that would be quite stressful. Was there anything you did particularly special for good luck or anything like that?
No, I can't say of anything.
What sort of entertainment would you have had on the ship?
We had movies. Yeah, we traveled in pairs or threes, and each ship would have movies, and then we'd swap them around. So if we were going to be gone long enough.
And when you were in port or back at your base in Guam, did you have entertainers that would come to the base at all, or like USO entertainers or anything?
I don't recall that too often. No. Mm-mm.
Were you able to get leave then when you were on Guam?
Yes, wasn't any place to go, so I'd take a few days here and there, just to be home. And
was there anything outside the base or anything where you and your family could participate in entertainment or other activities?
There wasn't much there when I was there. They had the base exchange, and I did a lot of snorkeling and collecting seashells and just things like that. We had a football team. I did some reffing for football.
So there were some activities that you could fill your free time.
Yeah, and then they had the NCO clubs, or AC/DC club we called them. And
Were you able to travel to other locations, say back to Hawaii or any other areas?
Well,
leave?
Yeah, on the ship, I was able to travel. We went to close islands. We did a search and rescue operation. There was a ferry that had went down, and we searched.
You didn't travel with family then on leave or anything away from Guam?
No, there was really no place to go. Yeah, so when we first got to Guam, the only kind of milk that you could get was condensed milk, or milk that you had to water it down or something. I don't know. But then while we were there, they actually got a farm up on Tinian Island, I think it was, and they were able to import some fresh milk. So that was a big deal back then.
Did you have fresh vegetables and meats and things like that on Guam?
Yeah.
Let me just ask you, during your time at sea, for instance, or otherwise ashore and in military service, were there any particularly humorous or unusual events that happened?
I have to think about that.
Michael, did you have any particular weather events, either on Guam or on the ship?
Yeah, so we were out to sea and ran into a typhoon, and very rough seas. We had to secure our watch because of the people couldn't be outside of the superstructure in the ship, and we hit a wave that we had these clutches, and they started slipping, and it filled up the engine room with smoke. It was very rough at sea that time. Yeah. And then while I was on Guam, Typhoon Pamela came through. There were sustained winds of like 200 miles an hour. Just basically tore the island apart. There were ships that were beached, and all the jungle was mowed down.
Did you have any problem with seasickness at sea?
Not severe, but at times I would get, queasy, and more than anything, it made me sleepy. But we had one of our cooks. He was always sick, constantly sick. So it was hard on him. Yeah.
Oh. What did you think of your fellow sailors and the officers that you would have served with?
Yeah, wonderful. The commanding officer of my ship, Patrick M. Muldoon, he was a lieutenant, and it was unusual for a lieutenant to be a captain of a ship, I guess. And he was I really looked up to him. Yeah, very compassionate person. Yeah, and I understand he made captain, Navy captain. So
I made 06 at that point.
Yeah.
How many officers did you have, and how many enlisted people? Do you recall? Breakdown.
20, a crew of 20. We had 3 officers on board: the lieutenant, Lieutenant J.G., and an ensign.
Did you keep a diary or personal?
No, I took
notation?
pictures, took a lot of slides and things like that, but no written, nothing written.
I understand you brought some photographs on your cell phone today. We'll try to record those later on.
Okay.
Now, when you got out of the Navy in 1979, then, Michael, do you remember your last day of service? What was that like?
Uneventful. So I was, one-man recruiting office, and I just closed the door and walked out. I had been in contact with the commanding officer in Detroit, and of course they tried to get me to stay in, but circumstances didn't allow it. So.
Did you stay in Lansing or Charlotte area?
We did, yeah. I stayed in Lansing. We actually lived in Holt, Michigan, just south of Lansing. Went to work at the Postal Service. Worked there for another 27 years. So.
At the Holt Post Office?
Yeah, I worked at the Lansing Post Office, and then I was transferred to Grand Rapids Post Office.
Oh, I see.
I was the maintenance manager for the district here.
I'm sorry, was that the main office downtown, or?
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
You said you spent 27 years service with the Postal Service?
Yeah, and so I had 37 years of civil service retirement, which worked out great.
Did you go back to school at all under the GI Bill or anything?
I did for a while. I went to community college, Lansing Community College, studied supervision, maintenance management, those types of things.
Did you join any military veterans organizations after your service?
Yeah, I'm a member of the American Legion. I belong to the United Veterans Council of Kent County. I'm on the Veteran Services Advisory Committee for Kent County. I volunteer at the Veterans Home. So yeah, I stay involved, and I do a lot of that in memory of my father.
You mentioned, let me just go into this a little bit. You mentioned your father had a full career in the Army then.
Yes.
Was he in World War II, or?
Yeah, he was in World War II in the Philippines. He was in Korea and Vietnam. He was in 3 wars.
Where did you serve in Vietnam, do you recall?
Da Nang, Pleiku, and I can't recall. There was a third place that I remember him.
What was his military specialty?
During Vietnam, he was a crew chief, helicopter crew chief. He earned the Air Medal there, and
I see.
Yeah, he's highly decorated. I'm proud of him.
Did you make any close friendships from your time in the Navy service?
Yeah, I did. Still in contact with some of the original people I went through boot camp with. And, we would have gunboat reunions every year. So those ended about 3 years ago when the Master Chief Petty Officer that organized these, he passed away. And I was the historian for a gunboat reunion. So there were 17 gunboats built. So we had a pretty good complement of people that attended the reunions.
So it wasn't just the USS Gallup crew members that got together. You got together with other
gunboat sailors.
patrol
yes.
gunboat
Yeah.
people. Yeah. Is the Gallup still in service?
No, they're all gone. These ships were conceived after the Cuban Missile Crisis. They wanted ships with shallow drafting in shallow waters, with some firepower and a lot of speed, so we could run blockades and things like that. So.
Let me stop it here. Michael, what American Legion post are you a member of?
I belong to the Cascade Post, Post 451. We meet once a month. We don't have a building or anything. We meet at the library. I believe there's about 25 to 30 of us, probably 15 to 20 active members. We still have a couple of World War II veterans in our post.
Yeah, the Grand Rapids Home for Veterans. You were volunteering there. What did you do there?
Yeah, well, I go in when they have like bingos and help with that. When they have special events, I go in and help. Every Sunday I'm there. I set up the altar for Catholic service. We take communion to people that can't get out of bed, you know.
Did you participate in the carnivals when they had those?
I did, yeah.
Michael, how did your experience in the service in the Navy affect your life?
Well, I would say a pretty big impact on my life. Taught me discipline, responsibility. I think taught me to appreciate the things that I had.
Well, let me take the opportunity to thank you for your service in the U.S. Navy and also with the Postal Service later.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you'd like to cover?
Well, nothing that comes to mind.
Close the interview. I also want to thank you, Michael, for sharing your recollections and experiences in the Navy with us. This interview is part of the Veterans History Project at the Library of Congress, Washington, D.C. And again, this is being conducted through the History Department at Grand Valley State University, Allendale, Michigan. I, as the interviewer, Wallace Erickson, have been interviewing Michael Blundell, a U.S. Navy veteran from 1969 to 1979. Michael, what is in this photograph?
That's a change of command ceremony on Guam.
This is on the USS Gallup?
Yes.
Is that right?
Yeah. Our commanding officer, Patrick Muldoon.
Do you want to point out where you are?
Sure.
If you can find it.
Sure.
You find yourself?
I am right in the middle, right down here.
I see.
You want me to make it larger?
Okay. Where are you again, Michael? In
I'm right here.
I see. Where are you in this photograph then?
Well, I'm holding an M16 here, and I'm right here.
And you're on the USS Gallup, is that
Yes,
right?
yeah.
At sea?
Yep.
Where is this photo taken then, Michael?
I don't know for sure. That's just one of the other gunboats that, you know, we were probably close to them. And
What's in this photo then, Michael?
that's the mess deck on the gunboats. We had 2 tables. You could set 4 people at each table. So.
Are you in the photograph at all? Or?
No, I'm not in that.
You took the photograph.
Probably, yeah.
Michael, what ship is this?
That's the USS Crockett. It's another one of the gunboats. And I think this is an official Navy photograph. It had what they call that a hurricane bow. So
What do we have in this photo, Michael?
that's the bridge where the conning officer and the helmsman, navigator, captain, they would be up there. I worked in a room behind that in Combat Information Center.
Okay, where was this photo taken, Michael?
That's in dry dock in Guam.
What is this a model of, and who made it, Michael?
Yeah, I built this. It's a model of the gunboat that I was on. I've got it on display right now at Barracks 616, and I've got plaques and pictures and stuff with it. This is my certificate for crossing the equator.
I see. Well, this ends the photographs that Michael has prepared for us. And again, Michael, I want to thank you for your participation in the
Yeah,
Veterans History Project.
yeah, my pleasure.